Hey, Pretty Girl Club, welcome back to the Decentering Men series. And I want to talk about how most men can't date around. I see a lot of men saying 90% of women are chasing after 10% of men. Okay, so according to your own talking point, sir, that means that 90% of men, they cannot have a roster. They can't date around. And then I hear men saying, oh, well, men who are in the top 10%, they just have like this harem of women. Like they're just sleeping with all these women. Again, a harem, if you understand what that word means, harems, historically, the only reason women were a part of those is because they were financially provided for, they were getting free education, free housing. So men who have like a roster of women, like maybe he's an NFL player, he's spending money, that's the reason why he has access to those women. It's because he is providing her with something: fame, money, access. He's providing her with something of value. Most of those women who get with those ugly ass NFL players, they're not with that guy because, oh, he just has a wonderful personality. No, because you'll see a lot of the women, once they have the baby, then they like leave the guy, or they still end up divorcing the guy, or once the guy gets out of the NFL or NBA, you see that man start to crash out. Why? It's because he knows that without his social status and without his access to money, his entire life is going to change for the worse. So this is why I don't take men's talking points seriously when they try to pretend like women are just going to hit the wall, and if you have a baby, if you're a baby mama, then your value, like you're worthless basically. And it's hilarious because in real life, men are actually chasing after baby moms. All those OF girls that they're simping over, all these strippers that they're simping over, those women are quote unquote baby mamas. A lot of the celebrities that they have a crush on, those women are baby mamas. A lot of the women that they have access to in real life, or the women that are swiping past them on dating apps, are baby mamas. Another thing too that women have to remember is being single as a woman, it's way easier than being single as a man, because remember, men historically are not good at building communities. A lot of young boys are not raised to be emotionally available. So even if that single man has male friends, his male friendships are not as deep and fulfilling as what it is for like a woman. So that's why you see a lot of men who seek out female friends. Why? It's because they know that you are emotionally rich as a woman. This is a part of why I don't believe in male-female friendships. A lot of times men want to be friends with women because those women are more caring, they're more nurturing. I've seen some women, they will cook and clean for their guy friends. They will do all kinds of shit. Check on him if he's sick. They'll go pick up some allergy medicine from the pharmacy, go and pick him up from the airport. So having a friendship with a woman is a totally different experience. It's way more fulfilling than having friendships with men. And men know this. That's why they purposely go out of their way to seek female friends. And so what you have is you got a bunch of average men on the internet living vicariously through rappers and NFL players, most of whom are still simps themselves. Men like Drake. Drake is definitely a groupie. He simps over damn near every woman. We saw him obsessing over Rihanna. We've seen him chasing after ex-workers. I mean, so this behavior, it doesn't stop just because a man has money. This is why I say that women will never lose our value. There is no such thing as the quote unquote wall, because you see men of every race, of every age bracket, of every socioeconomic status, still, no matter what point he's at in his life, he is either chasing after a woman or he's giving his money to a woman, whether it's his baby mama, his wife, or his mother. So there is no such thing as women being put out of the picture. This is why I say that it is still safe to decenter men, because guess what? Men are never going to decenter access to women. They're obsessed with accessing women. They're obsessed with dominating and subjugating women. Some men chase after sex. Some men chase after women's emotional validation. Even when it comes to LGBT men, I see a lot of gay men who specifically want to be friends with women. It's like, why don't you hang out with all the other men? Like, why is it you're specifically going after women? Because they know the value of having a woman in their life, even if it's not in a romantic way. Women bring emotional value to the table. You know how they say, what do you bring to the table? Emotional value, resilience, validation, nurturing, a deeper quality of friendships, creativity. A lot of men, think about it. If there's a big group of guys and they want to hang out this weekend, what are they going to do? Go to the sports bar, go and play video games, go play basketball. So a lot of men, they can't even come up with creative new experiences in order to enrich their own lives. But notice how if there's a group of women, women will travel together. We will go to wine tastings. We'll go to a tea party together. We'll host our own sleepovers and we decorate everything all pink. And like the quality of the events, the quality of experiences, and the diversity of experiences that women have on average is literally a better quality of life than what we see for most men. Not to mention the fact that women, we are socialized to be very giving. So, for example, around Valentine's Day, I had my girlfriends, they were like texting me Happy Valentine's Day, giving me little cookies and stuff, giving little Valentine's cards. Most men, they don't do thoughtful stuff like that for their male friends. And a lot of people act like men have no emotions. No, men definitely have, they have brains, they do have emotions. They may not be as good at processing them, but they still have emotions. So a lot of men have this core wound of rejection and isolation or feeling like nobody notices them. Just think about it. Imagine the type of pressure that men face in everyday life. They're expected to be masculine, they're expected to be tall and attractive and have straight white teeth, a nice jawline, have a nice body. Men's body image, that's also an issue as well. Like men can have insecurities just like women. So they're coming online pretending like their insecurities don't exist. But every day you see the media only promoting a certain type of man, right? So the same issues that women have with like media representation or what gets pedestalized in the dating market, all this dating market value stuff that they talk about, guess what? That same talking point can be applied to men as well. Because I've never heard a woman say, oh my God, my dream guy is a fat, bald, short man who has bad breath and yellow teeth. Oh, that's my dream guy. I've never heard a woman say that. But the average man in the US is overweight. The average man over 40, first of all, having ED, having erectile dysfunction, that becomes more prevalent once a man passes 40. And a lot of people wonder why men get addicted to corn. Well, it's because they know that they can't access that type of sex in real life. They can't access women in real life, or no woman would volunteer to do that with him unless he's paying her, and then he doesn't have the money. So that's why you see a lot of men being addicted to escapism. And I also see a pattern of men holding on to toxic relationships too. So I see men online, they'll complain about women being 304s or cheaters or being ratchet and disrespectful. But then when you ask that same man, hey, what was your ex-girlfriend like? He begins to describe the very woman that he hates. So it's like, okay, sir, you talk about women choosing better. You should have chose better. You're the one who chose ratchet women. You're the one who chose the woman that threw the bottles at you. You're the one that chose the woman that was a cheater. And the same talking point they give women, I can give them. Guess what? The woman you want didn't want you. That's what the entire red pill space is. It's men who couldn't get the baddies complaining that the baddies didn't want them. And I also see men selling men this delusion where it's like, oh, all you have to do is make above a certain amount of money. Just learn stocks and trading and, just learn about the stock market. Then once you hit six figures, the women will come running. That's actually false. First of all, majority of men do not make six figures and will not make more than six figures. Secondly, six figures, that's not rich. You are not a millionaire, sir. So another thing too is with men putting money on a hierarchy, by the way, men struggle with hierarchy thinking very badly. But it's like, okay, let's say you do make six figures. Guess what? There's always a guy who makes more money than you. So now what? The men are just putting themselves on this hamster wheel where they don't realize that they're teaching other men a scarcity mindset. Like, no woman is going to go for you. They're only going for the top 10% of men. And if you are in the top 10% of men, there's always some guy who's better than you, who has more money, or some guy who's taller. Like I've seen this sector on YouTube called the height pill, where they talk about how like height determines your destiny, basically. So they're putting men on a hierarchy based on height. So it's like, okay, men can't even build communities with other men without sizing each other up and putting each other on a hierarchy. So if you're 5'11", you're a step below a guy who's 6 foot. And then, if you're 5'10", then you're really below that. And then if you're below 5'10", then you're just fucked. So it's like, They're not even good at building their own community. So imagine how depressing it is. Like, I just feel like if I were a man, I would be so depressed. I was thinking about this the other day. If I were a man, I would feel so depressed. First of all, I would definitely not be dating. If I were a man, I wouldn't be dating because I would be like, okay, I'm not rich, I'm average. So basically, no woman wants me. That's how I know that they're projecting, because they know that most women, if they were to describe their dream guy, they wouldn't say, oh, it's the guy making 50K a year working as a McDonald's manager. That's not what most women are going to say. So just like how women have a desire to be put on a pedestal and be the fantasy and be the dream girl, men, even though they won't admit it, they have that desire as well. That's why they hire ex workers. It's because the ex worker's job is to make him feel like a man, or, it's to make him feel good. It's to make him feel wanted. That's really what those men are paying for when they're paying ex workers. They're just paying to feel desirable, they're paying to feel wanted. So that's why you've got like the cam girls or the strippers or the escorts or whatever. It's not just about the sex part, it's about feeling desirable. So a lot of men in general feel undesirable. And then their rejection wounds go much deeper than women. So they try to like make fun of women like, haha, this man ghosted you. Imagine being ghosted in real life though. Men get ghosted in real life. In high school, he asked that girl to prom. She said no to his face. He's walked up to women at malls or at parties trying to get their numbers, and they've blown him off and called him ugly to his face. So that's nowhere near as bad as the type of rejection that women might face. And not to mention the fact that women tend to bring more to the table in a relationship anyway. So if a woman gets rejected for a relationship, is it really that bad? She was most likely, that relationship was probably going to be a net negative in her life, statistically. You know that there are actual articles that say that married women live shorter lives and that married men live longer lives and are healthier. So if a woman gets rejected, or if she's never married, you know how they shame women for like never being married. If a woman has never been married, that's not as much of a loss for her as it is for the man, because a man's financial status really matters much more than a woman's. That's why you see men as the main ones fighting for 50-50. Men are the main ones saying, no, we need to bring back 50-50. You need to pay 50-50. Why is he saying that? Because he knows how important it is for him to raise his financial status. He wasn't able to make 200K on his own. He needs to double up his 100K with your 100K so that he can feel good about his net worth being 200K. And another reason that I say most men can't date around is because, sir, if you can't even afford to go to a dinner, dating on average costs what, a couple $100 a month? That's to date one woman. That's just taking one woman out on a date once a week. Let's say every date he takes her on is like $30. So $30 4 weeks out of the month, so that's once a week. That's $120 just on one woman who might ghost him, who might never see him again. So men dating around, in what universe are men just dating around? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Most men don't even have the money to even pay for that many dates, not to mention the time management skills. A lot of men, just in general, are average, okay? Most men are average. That means he has not reached where he wants to be in life. His body, he probably hasn't reached his body goals. He probably doesn't know how to do his own hair, or to, he has to go to the barber shop because he never learned how to line up his own hair. So even if a man were not paying for dates, let's say it's a 50-50 or she's paying for all the dates, he's still lost because he's losing time. All that time that he is spending with women who are eventually going to leave him for a better man, that is time wasted that he could have been building himself up. He could have been building his dreams. He could have been getting a second job and saving up money. And that's what a lot of men are trying to do. They're saving up money, or they're trying to level up. Why? So they can access a woman. So that's how I know that they still view women as a prize. So this whole argument of, oh, well, men think they're the prize. Well, they can think they're the prize all they want, but society shows that men have it way worse than what women do. Not just when it comes to dating, but when it comes to finances, men have way more financial pressure than women have. And on top of that, they still have like sexual pressure as well. So you've got men calling other men incels or making fun of other men for like not having sexual access to women. And then you've got women also complaining that the dick is bad. They're complaining that he's bad in bed because he's trying to copy what he sees on Korn because he doesn't realize that they're actors. Oh, and by the way, every time that man watches Korn, he is being socialized and brainwashed to put sex with women on a pedestal. Now, if he is watching LGBT Korn, that's something else. But generally speaking, media affects you. It affects how your brain thinks. It affects like the wiring of your brain. So yeah, if he is a Korn addict, oh, he is most definitely going to be a female validation addict as well. And also the Korn addicts, those are the ones who are more likely to put women on a pedestal whose body resembles the Korn star. So if you have kind of this stripper body type or you're in shape or something like that, that's usually what's featured on Korn. Usually they don't show like obese women or women with super big stomachs and stuff. If you fit the stereotype of having a quote unquote nice body, oh, I guarantee you that man's putting you on a pedestal. So saying that women are not the prize or women have no value or women hit the wall, well, you don't care because you still jack off to women that look like that every single night. You jack off to baby mamas every night. So you're saying baby mamas have no value, but the majority of Korn stars are baby mamas, by the way. A lot of men, they worship women's sensuality to the point where you got OF girls not even doing actual Korn, but maybe they're just showing a cute little photo or something, or they're just interacting with men, and these women are making millions of dollars. And now you've got men pretending to be women or using AI to try to create like an AI OF girl, or they're trying to create like these AI girlfriends and stuff, because that man knows that without a woman, he could not have access to that level of money. So he still needs a woman's presence, even if it's a virtual woman. He still needs a woman's presence to elevate his status financially. So he's making money off of a woman, or he's using that woman as his employee. This is why I always say men want women way more than women want men. And I'm talking about emotionally, because I also hear men saying, well, men built all the buildings and men are the one protecting this country. Okay, I didn't say that men are not needed logistically. The decentering men conversation is about centering your own emotional wellness and mental health. Okay, so my point still stands that men want women more than women want men emotionally. Men are not as good at regulating their emotions. And we know that because they are more likely to go to prison, they're more likely to commit violent crimes, they're more likely to SA people, they're more likely to grape people. All of those things, they're more likely to have addictive personalities, such as Korn, gambling, alcohol. So all of that comes from not being able to regulate your emotions. So we all know that whoever is the most emotionally regulated has the most power. The person that's emotionally regulated is able to detach. And I know that some women, they feel like they're bad at detaching from men. Trust me, men are way worse at attachment. A lot of men, they will bring up, how many men have you met where they bring up Sally from first grade who rejected them? Like these men, they're memorizing women's names who rejected them in high school. They memorized that woman's phenotype or how she looked. They're like, oh yeah, Sally the cheerleader, back when I was 15, she rejected me. They'll talk about their baby mamas who they claim to not care about. They'll be like, yeah, fuck that bitch. So it's like, okay, you clearly have not detached, sir. You clearly are still emotionally dysregulated over a woman that's probably not even thinking about you. And that's also why you see men taking revenge on their exes way worse than women. That's why with the T app, you saw women where they're just telling about men who are dangerous, whereas with the men's T app, they were literally posting revenge Korn. So the whole way that they used the app had a completely different motive. Well, why is that? It's because men on average are not as good at regulating their emotions. And so they inflict pain on others as a coping mechanism. But the reason they inflict that pain is because they feel so much pain inside. Because remember, the average man in society is invisible. The average man only matches on a dating app, 3% of the time? The average man does not get the same level of customer service. Like, think about it. If you work in a customer service setting, are you extra friendly with the men? Do you feel extra safe around men? No. A lot of men are stereotyped as natural predators because historically, that's tied to their history as a gender. So their collective image as a gender is that of someone dangerous. So because a lot of women and even other men are scared of other men, That's why you have men feeling so isolated, not just socially, but also emotionally. And if you guys watch videos of women who have transitioned, like the trans community, you'll see videos of women who transitioned into a man, and they'll be talking about how they want to go back to being a woman because they don't like how they're treated as a man. So they'll be on TikTok talking about how everybody ignores them now when they walk at the park, or they walk down the street and then people are crossing the street because they don't want to be next to them. So all of those things are like micro rejection. So men go through way, way worse rejection, way deeper rejection than women could ever imagine. So that's why I don't view it as a big deal. It's not an insult if a man says, oh, well, that's why you got ghosted. That's why you got pumped and dumped. Sir, do you not realize that men can be pumped and dumped as well? Do you not realize that women can use men for their bodies as well? Also, have you ever noticed that whenever it comes to the dating conversation, I see a lot of women, they will talk about taking a break from dating. I don't see men talking about that. A lot of men are just constantly chasing either a relationship, or they're chasing casual sex, or they're chasing friendships with women. So I don't see as many men saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to isolate myself. I'm not really going to socialize, or I'm just going to hang out with other men. And I want to empower other men. I don't really even hear men using that phrase. Oh, I really want to empower other men. I really want to build a brotherhood. I don't see that very often. And when you do see men build brotherhoods, a lot of times their brotherhoods are going to go against other men. So for example, organizations like, white supremacy organizations, African American gangs, people from different geographical locations, different countries throughout history, they end up going to war with each other. So even the communities and brotherhoods that they build amongst men end up rivaling another group of men. So it's this pattern of self-destruction. So that's a part of why a lot of men are so self-destructive. Have you ever been around a man and wondered, like, why does this man sabotage himself? Why does he squander every opportunity? Well, it's because he has no purpose. A lot of men are walking around this earth. They don't know who they are. They don't know their identity. Nick is a great example of this from Love Island. I just made a video about that. Nick is a good example of a man he's a young man in his 20s. He doesn't know his identity. He doesn't know what he wants to do. So he's just kind of swaying with the wind. Like whatever looks like it's the best option at the time is what he's going to do. Why? Well, because he hasn't even thought about his own future. He doesn't have the self-esteem to even value himself enough to put his future first. So that's why you see a lot of men self-sabotaging. Have you ever noticed a lot of men lack foresight? It's because little boys, when they're little boys, they are not taught to slow down. They are not taught to reflect. A lot of little boys are not taught to be self-aware. Most little boys really get ignored in the school system. Unless that boy is really gifted, unless he's a really gifted student, most little boys get ignored. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of teachers that have annoying students, a lot of times their most annoying students are little boys. Because a lot of boys are socialized to be rambunctious, they're not socialized to focus their energy. That's why you see a lot of boys just running around, throwing balls, breaking stuff, crashing into things. They're playing with toys, they're crashing into things. Meanwhile, if you see how women are socialized, young girls, they're socialized to be nurturing, to anticipate other people's needs. Men are not socialized to anticipate other people's needs. So if he can't anticipate other people's needs, how is he going to anticipate his own? He can't. That's why you see a lot of middle-aged men who still don't know how to grocery shop. They still don't know how to do laundry in their 40s. They still don't know how to do basic life skills because they haven't developed that foresight. They haven't developed the ability to plan ahead and to organize their time. So this whole dating argument is actually laughable because half of the men in the dating market don't even know the different settings on a washer and dryer, yet they have the audacity to say that women hit the wall. I've also noticed that men are more likely to kind of numb out their emotions. The way that they tend to numb out their emotions is through escapism, so playing video games, smoking marijuana, or doing some sort of substance. It could be drugs, alcohol, smoking, also taking big risks. So gambling a whole bunch, driving a car, street car racing and all that, doing all this super adventurous stuff where he can really hurt himself. So a lot of men do that as a way to emotionally numb themselves. But the problem with being emotionally numb is that now you have a whole bunch of emotional blind spots. So that's how you see some men have this Jekyll and Hyde type of personality where one day he's really nice, the next day you don't even recognize him. Well, sis, he doesn't even recognize himself because he's been suppressing all of this anger. A lot of men struggle with suppressed rage, or if their rage is not suppressed, you will see them expressing their anger because that is also an emotion that's normalized. It's normal for a little boy to show anger, but it's not normal for that little boy to be gentle. Being a gentleman, it means that you are a gentle man. So a man who's gentle, that means he talks to a woman gently, he holds the door gently, he touches her gently. So most men are actually not gentlemen. They don't even understand the definition of that word. Also, they have been taught that sadness equals weakness. And so they can't express their sadness, or they don't know how to kind of cleanse out their sadness. They don't know how to like get rid of that emotion. So that's why you see a lot of men being prone to depression. And then men will try to use this stat and they'll be like, well, more women go to therapy than men. Yeah, that's because more women recognize their flaws and seek out getting help. So that's why 75% of the patients in therapy are women. It's because women can admit when we have a problem. A lot of men will just suppress their emotions, or, they will express their depression by going gambling or, drinking too much. Another reason why I say it's much easier for women to be single versus men is because women have more emotional outlets. It's acceptable for a woman to be multifaceted. You can do knitting, you can do yoga, you can go dancing, you can hang out with your girlfriends, you can watch movies at home. A lot of men don't have hobbies, so they don't have emotional outlets. And then whatever outlets they do have you noticed that they're hyper competitive? So his only emotional outlet is dunking on his coworker at the basketball court. His only emotional outlet is being able to bench more weight than his friends at the gym. That's why he's making those big ass grunting noises and, he's trying to get attention. That's his emotional outlet. His emotional outlet is playing a video game, competing against his friends, and then talking shit to his friends on the headset. So that's not a real emotional outlet. That's literally just him going into another competitive environment. Imagine having to compete 24/7. Do you know how exhausting that sounds? Think about how exhausted a lot of men are every single day. Think about how emotionally exhausted they are, how physically exhausted they are, because a lot of people expect men to also be physically strong. So there are some men right now working in construction or doing these demanding jobs, and they are not even physically built for that. But nobody wants to acknowledge it. And then, of course, he can't acknowledge it either because men are not supposed to be weak. They're not supposed to have weaknesses. So do you know how much pressure the average man is going through socially, financially, emotionally? So to say that women hit the wall, it's literally laughable because women will still always have female privilege. That's one talking point I agree with. Female privilege is definitely a real thing, especially emotionally. And that's why you see that men are more likely to unalive themselves versus women. Also, testosterone. So testosterone, that can amplify this competitive or aggressive impulse. You know how they talk about fight or flight? So the male stress response usually is going to lean more towards fight as opposed to flight or freeze. So if you combine his testosterone with poor coping mechanisms or no coping mechanisms, then yeah, it's no wonder you see a lot of men doing DV or, doing these violent crimes and stuff like that. And let's talk about underprivileged men. So this would be the men who are not in the top percent of the dating market. This is the 90%. These are the men who are not rich. They don't come from generational wealth. All those men are underprivileged in one way or another. Maybe he's a minority. Maybe he's short. Maybe he's fat. Maybe he's bald. He's got the bald circle. His hairline looks like the McDonald's symbol. Teeth are fucked up. Jawline's messed up. Whatever it is. A lot of the reason that those men have rage is because they feel powerless. Have you ever noticed that? If you go and watch those podcasts, go and watch that podcast with the guy Myron. Part of why he's shouting all the time and saying, that's why I'm a millionaire now. Well, he's saying that because for the first time in his life, he feels like he has power. So that's a talking point of a man who spent his entire childhood, teenage years, and youth feeling powerless. Do you know how depressing that is? And most men will never become millionaires. Most men will never become famous. Most men don't even make it out of their hometown. Doesn't the average person still live within like 10 or 15 miles of where they were born? So a lot of men will never experience the richness of life in the same way that women do. That's why you have a lot of widows, for example. Most female widows, a lot of them will like not get remarried, or they will just enjoy their life as an older woman being single. So they don't care. I don't see widows saying, "Oh my God, I hit the wall. Let me just hurry up and be desperate to find another husband." No, you see a lot of widows where they just keep living their lives. If you don't believe me, look at your own grandma. Look at your grandma. Look at your great grandma. Look at your family members who are widows. Were they desperate to find someone? On average, they probably weren't. But look at male widows. Anytime a man's wife passes away, oftentimes it's actually pretty common for that man to actually get with the wife's friend, or like her sister or someone close to her. I think the actual phrase is called like a widower. But male widows, they remarry at much higher rates and way more quickly. I knew somebody who her sister passed away, and her sister's husband, he remarried within 8 months. So a lot of men, they're more likely to remarry, they're more likely to want to remarry, and that's because a lot of them are naturally more dependent on women. Because if you think about it, if you think about how much society neglects little boys emotionally, yeah, that sounds like an extremely depressing existence. That sounds extremely lonely. Like, this is not female loneliness, it will never compare to the amount of loneliness and isolation that a man can feel. Because think about it. If you're a woman and you feel lonely, you can call your friend. You can call your sister. You can talk to your mom or your cousin. You could even probably knock on your neighbor's door right now and say, "Hey, yeah, sorry, I'm feeling sad. Like, I just needed somebody to talk to." That's more normalized for women. It's normal for women to nurture other women, and it's more normalized for women to express themselves and kind of vent in a healthy way. So part of why you see men screaming and shouting on podcasts is because he hasn't had a place to vent. He's never felt heard. So that's why he's shouting, even though he's sitting in front of a microphone. We can hear him just fine, but he's shouting because he has that trauma of never feeling heard. So I feel like men, they have a double trauma. They have a level of trauma that women will never experience. It's nowhere near the same. A lot of women, we have different types of traumas, like hypervisibility, I would say, can be a type of trauma for women. Getting unwanted attention. Most men are so invisible. I've literally heard men say that they would feel complimented and flattered if they got essayed. Imagine having self-esteem that low. And I've actually heard men say that more than once. But imagine your self-esteem feeling so low, and you feel so invisible, and you value your body. You have no value or respect for your own body, because your own existence as a human being has been so devalued to the point where you would feel complimented if a woman essays you. So the reason that I say that women will never hit the wall, and it's okay to go ahead and decenter men, because it's not going to, no, you're not going to have the same level of loneliness or isolation. The reason I say that is because women have more support. We have more emotional support, like amongst other women. We can always turn to other women. Yeah, some women can be catty or whatever, but generally speaking, we have been socialized. We have a social advantage. Some people would even say a biological advantage, but we have the ability to nurture each other and to nurture ourselves. Having a monthly period, that's a form of you being forced to nurture yourself. So women, we have these cycles throughout our lives where we have to nurture even things like hair growth. As women, a lot of us grew our hair out as children, or we wanted to. So we had to learn how to nurture things, nurturing our hair, nurturing our skin so it stays soft. So all of those small little micro habits that women pick up throughout childhood, those are the same habits that men have neglected, or the men's parents neglected to teach him. So tell me one area where men have been socialized to nurture that. I can't think of not one thing that little boys get taught to nurture. What do they nurture? Even when it comes to building muscle, things like building muscle. Do you know how many men were super skinny when they were growing up? They never had any muscle tone, no biceps or anything, because their own parents didn't even teach them about protein intake. A lot of men didn't even know, they're growing up not even knowing how to feed themselves properly, or they're becoming young adults not knowing about protein intake and how to like build muscles and stuff. So the main thing I can think of where men try to nurture it and grow it is their muscles. That's the only thing I can really think of. But most men can't even do that. He can't even build biceps. What makes you feel like he can build a 30-year marriage? And also this whole talking point where it's like, oh, well, men built all the infrastructure. Okay, well, every man is not a construction worker, dude. So some men who were talented at that, men who had skills, that's who built the infrastructure. The men who actually had the skills. So you don't even have the same skills as other men. That's another thing. Like I said, there's always a hierarchy. There's always a hierarchy amongst men. There's always this very strong pecking order. With women, you see more of a social pecking order, but it's not as strong. It's not as heavily enforced as it is with men. Men have historically unalived each other based on pecking orders, such as race, class, what country you live in. They've literally tried to take over other people's country just for fun, just because they felt like it. They just woke up and said, oh yeah, let's go push all the Native Americans out. Oh yeah, let's just go inject people with diseases and let's create viruses and let's just destroy people. So do you see women doing that historically? No, because a lot of women are actually fulfilled. A lot of women have more fulfillment. Even if a woman is depressed, I would argue that her depression is, generally speaking, not going to be on the same level as a man's. You know why? Because women are more likely to go to therapy. So we are more likely to seek help. A lot of us have healthy coping mechanisms that we either learn through childhood or as an adult, such as journaling, wellness culture, even on TikTok and stuff. You'll see a lot of women content creators where it's like, oh, this is my morning routine. Oh, I light my candle, then I do my journal, then I do my yoga and my crystals or my Bible study or whatever. So that's much more normalized. I don't see that with male content creators. You know what I do see though? Chauvinistic behavior. They're trying to show off in front of other men. They're trying to show what they've built. They're flexing. Flex culture. Which gender do you think created flex culture? Which gender do you think historically cared the most about flexing? So not even just in modern day America, but I'm talking about hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. Think about kings and queens and royalty and riding around on your high horse, having these big horses and these extravagant palaces. What gender do you think even created that divide in society? Was it women? I'll wait. So there is no way that a man will ever be able to make a woman truly feel bad. Like if you're a woman watching this and men are making fun of you, like, ha ha, you got ghosted, ha ha, you're a baby mama, you got abandoned. It's like they're projecting because, sir, you've been abandoned by society. A lot of men, if they're men of color, they've been abandoned by people of other races or ostracized by people of other races. Every struggle that you've gone through as a woman, every type of emotional pain that you've gone through, a man has experienced emotional pain and then some. So what they're doing is they're trying to cope. They're trying to pretend like they've never experienced rejection. They're trying to pretend like that's not a part of their story when we all know that it is. Because even when it comes to like Disney movies and stuff like that, all this content that pedestalizes men, that wasn't even written by men. So that shows you that men didn't even value other men enough to write movies that pedestalize them as a knight in shining armor. No, that was women who actually saw men's value and really overvalued men in some cases. So it's like, okay, your own gender doesn't even see you as like worthy enough to even write stories that are putting you on a high pedestal. And then if they are putting other men on a pedestal, it's literally based on how much they dominated and subjugated other men. So it's it's a constant competition. And that's also why you see men complaining like, nobody likes me for me. Nobody sees me for who I am. Well, yeah, that's a lot of men's core wound that they've had since childhood. A lot of parents, parenting culture is really like they have this talking point of boys will be boys. So it's kind of this nonchalant, I don't give a fuck attitude that a lot of mothers and fathers have against their sons, where it's like, okay, whatever, as long as he turns 18 so he can get out of my house, that's all I care about. So a lot of little boys are very deeply emotionally neglected. And don't even get me started on if he doesn't have a father or doesn't have a mother, or if he has some sort of unsafe home environment. So because they're emotionally neglected, they grow up and they continue that pattern with themselves. They emotionally neglect themselves. And then they develop all of these crazy vices, like living a double life, being a sex addict, or being a pastor and then being on the DL or whatever. They develop these crazy vices and they don't know where they came from. They're like, wow, this is not how I imagined my life. But it's like if he would have been emotionally intelligent, he would be able to tell you exactly how he got to that point. He'd be able to prevent the problems that he created for himself. A lot of problems that men have are self inflicted. Let's be honest, a lot of their problems are self inflicted. So, for example, living a double life, having a wife and then having somebody on the side and a side baby and all that, that's a self inflicted problem. You chose to stay with that woman, you chose to cheat. Or like them going to prison or committing violent crimes or being scammers, scamming culture. What gender dominates scamming culture the most? Committing frauds and starting Ponzi schemes and all that. What gender dominates that the most? So a lot of their problems are self-inflicted. So it's a form of self-destruction. So that's why it's like it'll never hurt my feelings if a guy tries to make fun of me being single or something bad happened or if I made a mistake. Because for a lot of men, they've actually made more mistakes than good decisions. Let's be honest, for the average man, his lifestyle is a reflection of his decisions, right? So if there is nothing special about his life, that means that there was nothing special about his decision making abilities. Women are outpacing men in terms of education. So, like I said, women will never be as lonely or isolated or depressed as men because we have so many other things going for ourselves. Emotionally, educationally, even financially, women, we have our own bank accounts now. We can open credit cards. So no man will ever be able to convince me that I've hit a wall because even the ugliest woman is probably still more emotionally fulfilled than the ugliest man. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.